We just got off the phone with prosecutors. They insist this was intentional and was not an accident. And now we're learning about 4 guns inside this 10-year-old's bedroom, 2 of them loaded, the other 2 mounted in a gun rack on his bedroom wall. Join me now, Paul Hokemeyer, a family therapist, Steve Rogers, former member of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force, and on the phone, Mike Breckenridge from WQKT Radio, 104.5 FM, and Stephen Nolan, the prosecutor in Holmes County, Ohio. Stephen, let me start with you. In this case, we've got a 10-year-old boy, and I'm speaking to the prosecutor. I know we have 2 Steves here. We have a 10-year-old. What can you do in terms of prosecuting this young boy if, in fact, he did what we believe he did, as he admitted on that 911 call? Can he get life in prison in Ohio?
No, we can't. In Ohio, a juvenile the age of 10, such as this child, can only be prosecuted in juvenile court. We do not have the option, as some states do, of seeking to have him bound over to the common police court to be treated as an adult. He'd have to be 14 in our state to do that, so our prosecution will remain in juvenile court. The court can issue various punishments up to the age of 21 and even beyond that if he's declared what's known as a serious youthful offender.
All right. Let me go to our reporter from WQHT, Mike Breckenridge from QKT. I'm sorry. Mike, what do we know about this young man? I mean, it seems to me he's got guns in his room, but he's been in trouble before. I'm reading reports that he got in trouble when he's 6 and 7 years old. He has a little bit of a history here.
Well, there were 2 reports that have come out. They're both kind of school-related. Once, it was a school bus incident that happened 4 years ago, as you mentioned, when he was 6. Administrator got involved in that. And then a year later, there was a problem with a teacher at his local elementary school. Also kind of a minor incident at the time, but those are the only 2 things that have really resurfaced in the past as far as behavior at this point.
All right, let's take a listen to hear what the boy's attorney has to say. There's always 2 sides to every story. Take a listen.
We don't have enough details at this point for me to tell you. We don't know whether it was intentional, accidental, nothing at this point.
All right, let me go back to the prosecutor, Stephen Nolan. You guys do not believe that this was an accident?
Yes, I can't discuss the evidence in any detail, but I can tell you there's absolutely nothing from what we know of the witness statement, the alleged delinquent child statement, and the physical evidence which would lead any credence to the possibility that this was an accident.
Mike, what do we know about a motive here? I mean, why would a 10-year-old boy, you know, despite anything that's happening at home, why would he grab a .22 rifle, aim it at his mother, and shoot and kill her?
You know, that's the, $54,000 question. The why question is out there, and nobody knows. What's come out in the last 24 hours, there is evidently an argument at the home between the mom and the boy over basically chores, going out and grabbing some wood. And the boy reportedly had told his 15-year-old sister that he was tired of arguing with his mom, and that's when he went to his room. And shortly after that, that's when the shooting occurred.
Paul Hokemeyer, family therapist, this is a difficult situation dealing with a 10-year-old, but this is an extreme circumstance.
Boy, it sure is. I think here we have another example of how our families are under incredible pressure and are in crisis. So I think what's really important in this case is the age of the boy and that he's 11 years old. So we know that this is pre-adolescence. Typically, we see behaviors that are impulsive and that have bad logic attached to them in an adolescent person. But in this case, I think the child is 11 years old. And so, again, there's developmentally we need to take a look at, does the child have the capacity to discern right or wrong? Does he have the capacity to determine what's real and what's a fantasy? I'm very concerned that this child had rifles in his bedroom.
Yeah, well, apparently 4 weapons, and 2 of them were loaded. We're going to talk more about this, taking your phone calls. What should happen to this 10-year-old? 877-TEL-HLN. Also, straight ahead on Prime News. A shocking arrest in the case of a father gunned down while dropping off his 2-year-old at daycare. Believed to be executed in a professional hit, now cops arrest this man, a businessman, a company executive, a father of 3. What could possibly be the motive for murder?
He said he got a gun out of his bedroom and he basically just shot her from his bedroom. She was in the living room area. He was in his bedroom. It was probably around a 12-foot shot.
For the people that didn't know her, they're missing out on a really good person. A best friend, sister, cousin, mother, aunt. She was dead.
Back now talking about the 10-year-old boy accused of killing his own mother with a rifle from his bedroom. Now, we played for you those just released chilling 911 calls with a child's voice heard in the background saying, "I shot my mom." Let's take a listen to more of that 911 call.
Does he have that gun on him? No. He's down here, and I guess there's a pile of blood. His mom's up there. He shot his mom with a .22. Okay.
Steve Rogers, the one thing that jumps out at me here, you got a 10-year-old with 4 guns, shoots his mom with a .22 rifle. That's a big weapon.
Well, it sure is, and what a nightmare for those law enforcement people over there. They're going, as a prior guest stated, those questions, his mental capacity, his behavior, his motive, I'm certain that law enforcement is going to look into that. But the greater question, as you say, what is he doing with all these guns? And law enforcement's going to have to find out what he was doing with those guns.
Let's go to the phone lines. We got Dana, who's in Virginia tonight. Dana, your thoughts tonight?
Hey, I agree with you guys 100%. You know, having a 10-year-old with guns loaded, I mean, we got to, you know, what were they thinking as a parent? When I think back when I was a child, my temper was beyond, you know, if I had a gun at 10 years old, who knows who I would have shot.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking about, are they old enough to understand what they're doing? Well, then they're clearly not old enough to have a gun. Mike Breckenridge, I want to ask you, this was a nice woman, wasn't it? We have no indication there's any history of any sort of abuse going on in that house.
No, by all indications, everything was normal. She seemed well-liked. The people that have come out and spoke have had nothing but good things to say about her. Sort of a quiet country setting for the most part, so that's why it's even more of a shock.
All right, Stephen Nolan, what's next in court for this young man?
There'll probably be a pretrial set in the next week or so, or 10 days, meeting with the judge and the defense attorney, and we'll discuss at that time where we go from here in terms of psychological evaluations or the decision to have him declared a serious youthful offender.
Right.
Things will move slowly for a while.
All right, Stephen, I'm sure we'll be in contact with you again. Mike Breckenridge, Paul Hokemeyer, Steve Rogers, thank you all. Meanwhile, police in Idaho arrest a man in a bizarre kidnapping and murder case. They say he assaulted his wife, bound her with tape and chains, dog chains, forced her into the trunk of his car. Then he drove that same car to his mother's house with their 4-month-old baby in the back seat. And here's where it gets weird, okay? Cops say 24-year-old Michael James Lee left his wife in the trunk while he took his little baby into his mom's house, ate dinner with his mom and her live-in friend. Well, that friend then found Lee's mother stabbed to death. And somehow, his wife managed to free herself from the trunk of the car. A lot of questions here as police sort through this apparent crime spree. Joining me now, reporter Scott Evans from Prime News affiliate KTVB and family therapist Dr. Paul Hokemeyer. Paul, I want to go to you first on this one, and this is why. If, in fact, any of these allegations are true, this is a guy who throws his mother in the trunk, stabs and kills, throws his wife in the trunk, stabs and kills his mother. Meanwhile, his 4-month-old baby is witnessing all of this. If you have to sit in a room with this guy and try to figure out what was going through his mind, how does that question and answer session go?
Well, I think what we have here is an extreme example of violence and humiliation against women, and that's completely unacceptable. Not only is it unacceptable, though, its behavior of this sort demonstrates sociopathy. So, in other words, somebody who doesn't have an understanding of what's right or what's wrong, who's totally disconnected from a sense of morality and the capacity to make decisions as to discern what's a good decision. Clearly, this is not a good decision, and an act of violence and humiliation.
Scott Evans, I'm going to go through a timeline, then I want you to correct me if I make any mistakes or add any details that I miss here. The wife is sexually assaulted, bound with chains, forced into the trunk of the car. The suspect drives to the mother's house with the infant, the 4-month-old, in the back seat. The suspect then eats dinner with his mom and his mom's friend at the house. Then witnesses woke up to find the mother stabbed and the suspect holding knives, plural knives, and then somehow the wife escapes from the trunk. What other details can you give us, Scott? This is the most bizarre tale that I've heard in quite some time.
Yeah, you know, it's a bizarre tale that most of us probably will never hear unless we watch some sort of a movie. But your timeline, for the most part, is very accurate, that he lived just a couple of miles with his wife and daughter from where his mother lives. So he went over there with his wife in the trunk, daughter in the back seat, went inside with her mother, with his mother and her partner. They had casual conversations before they ate dinner. His mother's partner then went and took a nap. When she woke up to a commotion and found that her partner, his mother, had been stabbed. We don't have any confirmation that there were several knives, but a murder weapon was found. While all of this is happening, his wife, who is a 20-year-old woman in the back trunk of a 2003 Volkswagen Jetta, is able to find that release handle, pop the trunk, run to a neighbor's home, and they were able to call police. About that same time, the mother's partner is able to get over there with the baby, escaping with only a punch to the face, is what we're being told. So it's pretty remarkable, pretty bizarre. And when police arrived on scene, the wife was screaming and yelling, still bound in those chains. And we're talking about a dog chain that they use for a leash or a choke collar. That's what she was bound in.
This
the
is sick
bizarre
stuff.
thing is that, yeah, and this is, if this actually did happen the way the police and prosecutors are saying it happened, is that detectives found today receipts for the purchase of the tape and the chains a couple of days ago at his apartment. So he had been planning this, and what he was planning on doing was going over to his mother's house and robbing her, then leaving the area entirely. Somehow, some way, that plan did not go as planned, and he ended up stabbing her, according to police, several times, and then she ended up dying a short time later at the hospital.
Unbelievable. He's now charged with first-degree murder, rape, aggravated assault, and battery. Scott Evans, Paul Hokemeyer, thank you both so much. All right, coming up next on Prime News.